We are live, brother.
Folks, what is up? And welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. You're here with Austin and you're here with me, Blake, and we're here to talk all things volunteer sports. And today, Austin, we got a couple sports to cover. It's a lot of happenings in football and basketball. So we got a pretty nice show. And man, am I pumped about the football news. We have hired a national championship winning strength and conditioning coach. How's that for you, folks? We've been talking about getting a better strength and conditioning coach. Well, I think probably the best in the country is the best that you can get, right? And then we've got basketball finally back in the win column. Shout
Mhm.
out to the Lady Vols as well. Both men's and women's basketball beat Alabama in Alabama. Alabama, Austin is back to their regularly scheduled programming of losing to Tennessee, brother.
Yeah, good week of basketball. Could have been even better if the Vols hadn't blown that game to Kentucky last weekend because they would be on a little bit of a streak now, the men's team. But the women's have
Yep.
been really on fire recently. And yeah, the football news has been really good news, man. Last we talked, we weren't sure about Arion Carter and we weren't sure about the strength and conditioning coach. So we've gotten some pretty good football news as well in the last week, even though that news is starting to slow down. Not that the portal is closed, but yeah, we'll get into the portal updates and everything. Ready to go.
Yes, yeah, we got a lot to cover in terms of portal updates. Well, we don't have a lot of portal updates, but we do have, like you said, some decent news in terms of the portal updates, and then of course decent basketball news. Although Austin, we also are going to cover a an interesting basketball situation
Yeah.
and talk about some corrupt Alabama judges. So that's going to be a fun segment for sure. Can't wait to talk about that. And they got their just desserts on that. But I digress. Austin, look, we hit 1,000 subscribers last week during our live show. Thank you all so much for getting us to 1,000 subscribers. It is incredible. It's one small milestone in the journey of Vol Talk, but we appreciate you guys. But hey, that doesn't mean the train stops here, baby. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And then, of course, hit the like button on this video. It would really help us out. And then, of course, most importantly, join the conversation. Jump in the chat if you're watching the live show. If you're watching on Spotify or after the live show, jump in the comments and let us know what you think about this hire for the Vols in football, the strength and conditioning coach. And then, of course, let us know what you're thinking about these two basketball teams that toppled Alabama. So, Austin, let's get right into the football news first. We're
Let's
going to
go.
start with the portal updates. So, Austin, last time we talked, last live show, it was right before Ryan Stobe, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Ryan Stobe from Colorado had committed, so he did commit. And then it was also right before we found out for sure that, like you mentioned at the top of the show, Aaron Carter is officially back to the Vols. And then, of course, technically there are still some targets left in the portal. Okay, the portal has closed for players to enter the portal. However, there are still uncommitted players. And as far as I understand, we do have a few targets, Austin, but really we're not going to cover that until we know for sure that they're going to be a Vol, right? So we'll cover it if any more news drops for the portal. But overall, Austin, we it looks like the this portal class has kind of shaped up into what it's going to be.
Yeah, we got our quarterback, man. We got our quarterback who will probably end up being at least second or third string, but we got a quarterback at the very least. We got the depth that we were kind of asking for. Heupel and the staff knew you couldn't go into the season with just two quarterbacks, especially when both are freshmen, one redshirt, one true. And then of course the Joey situation still lingers. We'll cover that closer to that time. Although it is around the corner, February 10th, so I believe is the date, Blake. So it's around the corner here. When we'll get more news on Joey. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
still right now, if I had to predict quarterback, McIntyre will be the starter. That's my prediction at the moment. Not a very hard prediction to make. It seems like that's the writing on the wall. But we'll see with that. And then Arion Carter, we talked about that situation. When we talked about it, it was a little bit more, we were kind of ripping into the situation as a whole, just the idea of it. But I am happy to
Yeah.
have him back. I mean, it is at the end of the day, he was a leader on defense. And he's not a bad player by any means. I always just thought maybe some of our fans overrated him just a little bit. And I think that's kind of, at the end of the day, why did he undeclare for the NFL draft? Probably because he got
Exactly.
the news that he wasn't going to be a high draft pick. So, but it is nice to have him back for sure. He's a good player, and clearly other teams wanted him as well. There was plenty of other college teams that were trying to get his services. So happy to have him back. We'll see what he can do. Now the linebacker room, man, all of a sudden it's looking absolutely stacked. I'm hoping,
Yeah.
I like T Lander, but I'm kind of hoping that maybe he takes a little bit of a step back with all the other linebackers on the roster at this point, with of course Campbell and Arion Carter, and then some of the young guys we've talked about that we're pretty excited about. So linebacker room definitely looks better than it did a year ago.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, that is a good position to be in when you're talking about having a crowded room as opposed to a thin room. And so, definitely good to see that. Excited to see what this new defensive coaching staff can do with a stacked linebacking group, or linebacker group, I should say. And then, of course, obviously, some other additions that we've made. Austin, we're still a little thin on D line, right? And then, of course, potentially in secondary as well. I know we're targeting a safety right now. Hopefully, we're still targeting some D line guys to kind of round out the depth there as well, because obviously we're looking still a little thin on D line. But overall, Austin, what do you make of? We were just looking at an article before we got
Mhm.
on this show, and you know it's talking about the rankings of the portal classes. What do you make of our portal class so far?
Yeah, I know a lot of fans, even you were texting me before the show, kind of worried about the numbers overall because we're losing more guys than we're bringing in. I'll say the way I view it, man, I'm okay with it because for one, you look at the guys outgoing. It's 28 players leaving. A lot of those dudes were never going to play significant snaps here. The state of college football, basically, Blake, you can't have guys develop for 3 years. Guys want to play, and
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake on their part. If I had to guess, like I would rather, if I were in their position and I want the best for my future, I would rather develop for at a school like Tennessee for 3 years and then get a chance to play by the time I'm actually ready to play instead of a lot of these guys, I'm looking at where they transferred, Austin P, Troy, you know, Memphis, like, you know what I'm saying? Like ETSU, like you start to see some of those schools they're leaving to, Albany Christian, like, you know, those are guys that are probably not ready to play in the SEC right now. Maybe some guys that we even told, hey, I mean, I see a kicker on here from Arkansas, Blake, that we definitely told to kick rocks. Like, we definitely told him, hey, you cannot be here. Like, you don't got to go home, but you can't be here kind of deal. So I'm not as worried about the outgoing number, especially, and, I told you this literally right before we got on the show. When you look at the high school recruiting class as well, like when you combined high school recruiting class and portal class, we're top 10. Now in just portal, we're only number 20, which, can be concerning. But to me, when you combine the two, which is what you should do, we're actually looking pretty good from that standpoint.
Yeah, and really, I would prefer that you have the continuity of the players that you recruited from high school,
Yeah.
as opposed to having to lean on the portal. Now, obviously, we know the portal is a critical part of the new landscape of college football. But regardless, just for context, folks, we're looking at a portal class where we lost about 28 players, and then we have
Hmm.
so far gained 18 players. So it's about a net loss of 10. But to Austin's point, right? Not a ton. There's a few key players that we lost, Lance Hurd and so forth, that obviously we didn't really want to lose. But otherwise, not a ton of big names that we've lost. And so overall, we seem to be looking okay. Obviously, it was kind of lackluster from an offensive standpoint, particularly with the quarterback situation. However, we had some nice pickups on defense, and so we'll see, man. See with this new defensive coaching staff. We'll see with a new strength and conditioning coach, which we're about to talk about, what we can get cooking. So, Austin, before we shout out any more portal updates, I want to quickly shout out the chat. Welcome my wife, Rachel. Love you, Rachel. Good to see you in the chat. Ryan, shout out Ryan. And shout out Rhonda. Good to see you, Rhonda. Haven't seen you in a live show in a while. And please, everyone, I hope everyone is staying safe and warm. I know a lot of Tennessee is experiencing pretty cold weather. Austin, the snowstorm, from what I hear, at least from what I've heard from you and Rachel and
A little
the
lackluster.
news, it didn't come to fruition the way we thought it was going to. At one point, it was like the forecast was like 15 inches
Yeah.
for East Tennessee,
Yeah.
and then you got about an inch, and the roads aren't quite as icy as we thought they might be. But regardless, I hope everyone's staying warm.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's worse parts of the country out there, and maybe even in Tennessee. I think parts of like maybe northern western Tennessee maybe got it a little bad. I'm not too sure, but yeah, like Blake said, hopefully everyone's good. We're good around East Tennessee. I know that, pretty decent. But yeah, other portal thing I want to touch on real quick, Blake. Also about the 18 incoming. One thing about that is too, man. Like, remember this coaching staff hasn't brought in a lot of portal guys ever. Like, that's always been the philosophy.
Yeah,
Hey, we're only going to bring in a handful of portal commits. Despite what we're losing to the portal. But the guys that they've brought in have always been super impactful. The crazy thing about this class is this is by far Heupel's biggest portal class. And I'm looking at the names and the positions, and I'm like, man, these are 18 players that can seriously make an impact on next year's team. Like, a lot of these guys are going to be starters, are going to be key starters, like stars on the team, especially defensively, man. I mean, we basically replaced every defender on the team outside of Ty Redmond and Arion Carter, which, a lot of people are saying, hey, he needs to be in our portal commitment since he was technically in the portal. But yeah, so the thing is, even though it's, it might not be as big as a class as like a team like LSU, which, keep in mind, the way Kiffin runs, he doesn't do high school recruiting. Like, he does very
yeah,
little high school recruiting. It's mostly poor. Like, he prefers guys that he can tamper with, Blake. Let's be honest. That's how he rolls. He prefers guys that are on current roster, signed, and that he can tamper with. Also, but I think we also have to touch on this real quick, dude, since I'm taking shots at Kiffin right now and tampering. I don't know if you saw, but Dabo specifically called out another coaching staff. Is actually Ole Miss's coaching staff, which, by the way,
yeah,
Kiffin was just at Ole Miss. Do you think they just like immediately changed all their ways and they started no, they learned it from Kiffin.
yeah.
They learned it from Kiffin. So Dabo called out Pete Golding, like, specifically, dude. Like, he had text messages, like, he had a whole timeline of events of saying, this is the date, this is the time that they tampered with my guy. And like, he went through
Right.
all of it, and it was like a 10-minute press conference. It was pretty incredible. Shout out to Dabo for that. Like, I hope more coaches start doing that. The problem is that Dabo is genuinely a man of integrity, and he doesn't go tamper with other
Right.
players. A lot of coaches that complain about tampering, but they're very vague with it, are also tampering, and that's the problem. They can't
Yeah.
come out and say, well, this guy tampered with my guy here, because that same dude was just tampering with another player's, or another team's player.
Yeah, exactly. And teaser, folks, we're going to talk about some more hypocrisy in the world of college sports later when we talk about this Alabama situation and basketball, the corrupt Alabama judge that we're going to talk about here later. So stay tuned for that for sure, because there's some more hypocrisy you're talking about, Austin. There's some hypocrisy there as well. So looking forward to talking about that. But yeah, man, Kiffin is just whatever, and yeah, that press conference from Dabo was hilarious. Like you said, freaking going through the texts and everything, and he had receipts, as they
Oh
say.
yeah.
So, man, it's an interesting landscape in college football and college sports in general. But nevertheless, yeah, I'm hoping that these portal additions from Heupel and the new defensive coaching staff, I do hope that they make a big impact next year, man, because we could definitely be in for a decent year if they can put it together, particularly on defense. So, but folks, we're going to keep a pulse on the portal as always and continue to bring you off-season football news. And speaking of off-season football news, Austin, so Shout out Indiana Hoosiers, just won the national championship. First 16-0 team since Yale in the 1800s, Austin.
Yeah.
So pretty good football team and pretty good coaching staff. In Austin, we were able to get a coach from their coaching staff, Derek Owings,
Mm-hmm.
their strength or their director of athletic performance. He is now the director of football performance, football strength performance, in other words, strength and conditioning at Tennessee. National championship hire, Austin.
Yeah.
You gotta love it, man. I'm excited about that.
No, yeah, I do love it. We made him the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in college football. I believe his salary is 1.2 million per year on a 3-year deal. Apparently we had already kind of signed the contract before the national championship even took place. So the deal was already in place. Listen, I think, I was a little late on the strength and conditioning thing, but looking back at it, dude, I was wrong. I was late. It needed to happen, especially after the Vanderbilt game. Like, we got absolutely bullied in the trenches against Vanderbilt, and that's just pathetic. And at that moment, you had to say, enough is enough. Like, we need a different strength and conditioning program, and that needs to change. And the coaching staff obviously identified the same thing. And who's a better guy to go get than Indiana? Which, if you've watched the college football playoff, which I've watched every game. Indiana has been, I mean, they bullied everyone. The one team that matched up well against Indiana just so happened to also have an insanely good offensive and defensive line. And Miami, they actually had NFL talent on the offense and defensive line,
Right.
whereas Indiana has not had that. So it's incredible what they did, man. It's incredible how they played, the style of football which they played, and you could see it, man. I mean, they look like a man amongst boys, and in some cases they were like, some guys they're rolling out 23-year-olds and whatnot. But I still think, it's a really good hire, man. I think Heupel. I mean, if you look at what happened this offseason, man, and we can have this SEC Big Ten debate. To me, it's a pretty boring debate, not one I love to have. But at the end of the day, Heupel said, "I'm going to go get these Big Ten coaches that have shown a lot of good things in the Big Ten, who have won championships in the Big Ten, and I'm going to bring them on our staff, man." That's been the strategy this offseason.
Yeah, a lot of people rightfully consider Jim Knowles a home run hire, as well as the staff that he brought along with him, and Poindexter and the rest of them. And then bringing in Derek Owings from the national championship winning 16-0 undefeated Indiana program that, like you just said, has dominated people. They have absolutely dominated people, and so I mean, really, you can't ask for much better than that, in my opinion. And like you said, we made him the highest paid. He spurned USC, Austin. Apparently USC was after him as well, and he spurned the Trojans for us. And well, not he told them no, and then like you said, we locked him in. Of course, money talks, right? When you're the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in the country, that'll do it. But another odd thing, Austin, that I love about the hire is that apparently his players love him as well. A bunch of the former Indiana players were just shouting him out on social media and talking about how great of a coach he is. Tennessee got a good one. We're gonna miss him, all that good stuff. So that's something you love to see as well, because that's going to help in recruiting, but also it means that he's just a good person, right? Good role model, but then also just a good coach, right? I mean, that's what you love to see.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, dude. And yeah, again, it's one of those things where I think the coaching staff identified, it's like, dude, we want these guys that have proven it on the highest level of college football recently. Josh Pate made an interesting point, man. He made an interesting point that the SEC was so dominant with players in high school recruiting recently that they kind of slacked on hiring good, like, position coaches and strength and conditioning coaches and things like that. And it's fascinating to me that Heupel must have kind of been identified a similar thing and say, hey, we're going to go poach these Big Ten programs that have had success recently, and have been really good. So, and it's not just that. It's like what you were saying too. It's the style that Indiana played, man. It's the style that they played. They won up front on a consistent basis, even though they were undermanned up front on paper. Which, listen, like, Tennessee recruiting wise it doesn't take a backseat to many teams right now. Like, I think we finished 7th in 24/7 in high school recruiting this class. but we're still behind a few teams. So it's Derek Owings, hopefully, is the kind of guy that can bridge that gap like Indiana did, which, by the way, was a chasm. It wasn't just like a gap of like a couple players. It was the 72nd ranked talent composite versus the Ohio States and Oregons of the world, who are top 5.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, huge stuff. Honestly, you love to see the moves from Heupel for sure. It's props to him, man. We said, hey, Heupel, we need to make some changes to get better, and he's done those things.
Dude, I know.
Now, I mean, it's kind of weird, like you said. It's very odd, right? It's like exactly
everything the fans said.
the fans were
Everything.
calling for. And hey,
Yes.
maybe the fans were right, or I don't know.
But dude, you're right though.
It's good to see.
It is. And Heupel just had I mean, listen, if we just, and was the portal class perfect? Did we miss on some guys? Yes. Was it perfect? No. But at the end of the day, dude, Heupel has had a very good offseason. Like, even going back to, it really started with the high school recruiting class. That went really, really well.
Yeah.
There was some hiccups in there with the legend base, which was out of Heupel's control. But at the end of the day, it went really well. It did. And then you parlay that into, okay, is he going to let Tim Banks go or is he not? He pulled the plug on Tim Banks, which was very necessary. We were all sitting here saying, like, is Heupel just going to continue to back his buddy instead of making the right moves that it's going to take to win football games in this conference? And he did that. And he went out and got Jim Knowles, which was probably one of the best coordinators out there and available. And then you get the strength coach, and then the portal class, which, Blake, remember the first couple days of the portal, which people will forget, it was looking super shaky, man. We hadn't got any of our big targets, and then we just started landing all of them. We basically got all of Penn State's good defenders from a year ago. We got Chaz Coleman, who was basically a top 3 player in the entire portal. And really, Sam Levitt was ranked above him. So let's just say top 2, because Sam Levitt's not a better football player than Chaz Coleman. Again, it hasn't been all perfect, but it's been way more good than bad since the offseason's taken place, Blake.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm feeling good about the offseason so far. And so, hopefully this momentum continues. It's going to be critical. How does GMAC develop? How does these new coaches come in and kind of cement into the culture and improve the culture and that kind of thing and get these players ready? So obviously time will tell, but so far so good overall, so far so good. So love to see the hire, Austin. We got a national champion, fresh national champion in Derek Owings as the new director of football performance, basically football strength and conditioning. Derek Owens has been hired from Indiana. So great hire by Heupel and the Vols. Love to see that, brother. And love to see everyone in the chat as well. Shout out to Eric Jones from Scott County, Tennessee, up there in Scott County. Eric on the Cumberland Plateau. Eric, we hope you're staying warm up there. Glad that you are with us in the show. We got Rhonda from over in Middle Tennessee, and then we've got Rachel and Ryan in East Tennessee, which is where you're at, and where I'm normally am as well. So got pretty much everyone across the state here, Austin. If anyone's from West Tennessee, shout out in the chat. Let us know. Would love to have all 3 sections of the state represented. But most importantly, let us know in the chat what you think about the Derek Owings hire. If you like it, you love it, let us know. But Austin, let's transition now to a fun. Well, it's. I think it's going to be a fun.
It's fun now.
Okay,
it's fun now that the outcome.
It's fun now because we won the game. But so real quick, we'll go ahead and say that, and we're going to cover the game here in a minute. But the men's basketball went down to Tuscaloosa, Austin, and Tennessee toppled the Tide in Tuscaloosa. Love it, terrific. Had to get as many T's in there as possible, baby. The Power T once again owns Alabama. The women also went down to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. And so, again, like I said at the top of the show, Alabama has returned to their regularly scheduled programming of losing to Tennessee. So that's what you love to see. But, Austin, we have to start with this crazy situation with a player for the Alabama Crimson Tide
Yes.
that was granted eligibility, shoehorned into eligibility
Yes.
by an Alabama circuit court judge
Correct.
who donates or has donated what, over $100,000 to the University of none other than Alabama. And this so happens to be right before the Tennessee game, right before Tennessee basketball comes to town. And he grants eligibility to a player who literally just played in the NBA G League, which is essentially NBA minor league, last weekend. Austin, talk us through this absolute insanity.
Yeah, I mean it really starts with the James Najee situation at Baylor. The NCAA granted James Najee of Baylor, who was the 31st overall draft pick in, I believe, the 2021 NBA draft, and they granted him eligibility because he had never played college basketball, and he never technically played in the NBA. Although he played in the G League, he also played in the Summer League, which is basically the rookie league for NBA players. Um, so they grant him eligibility, and this was for all international players. This, I believe, one other player, I think for Louisville, has already played under the same eligibility ruling from the NCAA, directly from the NCAA. Well, then Bediako, Charles Bediako for Alabama, who played at Alabama for 2 seasons before declaring for the NBA draft, going undrafted, and as Blake said, played 3 years in the G League, decides to sue the NCAA based on the fact that, hey, I'm a G League player who played 3 years in the G League, but also, I didn't finish my college eligibility. I should also get eligibility. The problem was he was a domestic player, Blake, and he had already played in college. This is the first ever college player who left college voluntarily, declared for the NBA draft, and has come back to college. Okay. The NCAA denied him eligibility and he sued. Well, this is where that Alabama circuit court judge comes into play, Blake, which, is obviously very corrupt. This Alabama circuit court judge basically stuffed the NCAA in a locker and said, "Hey, I'm giving Bediako immediate eligibility. Plus, guess what, NCAA? You can't give sanctions to Alabama. You can't even think about imposing sanctions to Alabama, Blake. You can't imply it, you can't hint at it, and you can't impose sanctions against the University of Alabama." And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, okay, so this means that the NCAA has lost all power when it comes to enforcing their eligibility rules. They cannot do it. When a circuit court judge in Alabama, Blake, I mean, we're talking, this isn't the Supreme Court, like this is this is one of the lowest ranking judges in this country, just told the NCAA that, hey, you can't do anything about this. You can't threaten Alabama and you can't threaten Bediako. And he's getting immediate eligibility to play, like you said, a week after being on a G League roster, Blake, and plays against us. This is on the heels of the Alabama head coach criticizing the James Najee situation and saying, hey, it's taking an opportunity away from a high school player. What are we doing? We're taking an opportunity away from a high school player, yet when it benefits him, Blake, he says, well, you know what? We could use a center. We could use a center who's 23 years old and has developed amongst G League players for the last 3 seasons. Keep in mind, people, the G League is just not good enough to go to the NBA. Like, it's not, this isn't the local YMCA team, Blake. It's not. It's the NBA G League. Like you said, it's much like minor league baseball that feeds right into the NBA. It works differently, but that's essentially what this is. And he played there and developed there for 3 years amongst grown men, Blake. And I mean, he's 23 at this point. And after voluntarily giving up eligibility, he is granted by this circuit court judge who nobody knows and apparently is a donor to the University of Alabama, granted immediate eligibility. So at this point, what do we do? Like, what is stopping us, Tennessee, from going saying, hey, don't connect, you want to come back? Like, it's just one step up.
Yeah,
Like, at some point, the slippery slope isn't a fallacy, it's a reality, Blake. And that's what happened, right? The
exactly.
James Najee situation happens. Well, it's just international play. It's just international G League players that never played in college. But just a couple weeks later, we have former college players coming back to college
Yeah.
basketball after playing the G. So what's say us to go get Gaunt Connect? He's not playing significant minutes right now for the Lakers. He's not playing significant minutes. I mean, it's just one step up. Like, we're not getting a G leaguer,
Yes.
we're getting an NBA guy, but hey, it's just one step up. Let's go get Gaunt Connect, Blake.
Well, it's still within the NBA structure as well, right? It's the
Yeah.
NBA G League. And so you're absolutely right. It just continues down that slippery slope. And it's absolutely insane, man. And again, poetic justice, as Rhonda says in the chat here, he did lose. And so we're about to cover the game in earnest. But man, it's just like what, like you said, what are we doing?
I
What are
know,
we
man.
doing, man? I
That's
mean,
crazy.
you've got and it's also Austin. It's literally he was in the G League for 3 years, and he played college basketball before. So
Yes.
essentially, what you're saying is hey, man, you're basically like. Granted, he's obviously, like you said, he's just outside of being good enough to be in the NBA, but eh, you're essentially a jobless bum. Okay. So you're playing for the G League. Hey, come on back to college. Why not? What college sports is not about college anymore anyway. So let's just bring in anyone. Bring in whoever we want. It doesn't matter where they're doing, what they're playing. Bring them back in. I mean,
As long as they have college
what do you
eligibility,
do?
Blake.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and like, what are we doing? Like you said, I mean, mostly, especially in basketball, these guys who go to the draft very rarely finish their degrees, or very rarely do a full how many ever years.
Yep.
So I just, look, man, you were mentioning to me before the show, it's like some people are like, okay, is freaking Congress going to have to step in to
That's
enforce
dude.
these rules for NCAA?
That's what the NC no, Blake. That's what the NCAA. That's not like random people. The
Yes. Yes.
NCAA spokesperson on the issue said, "Congress, please come help us. We can't do anything." And when you say that, when you come out and you're begging Congress publicly to enforce your eligibility rules, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting back saying, "Why are you here? What are you
Yeah.
doing?" What value are you bringing at the current, if you can't even enforce your own rules? A circuit court judge just stuffed you in a locker, by the way, there's no checks and balances because the guy's a donor of Alabama. So it's like,
Exactly.
what value are you bringing to the table right now? And Blake, it killed me. So after the ruling or whatever, and after the news broke, because the big news that broke, like, that he was going to play, and he did play. He played yesterday against us. Well, after the news broke, and whoever, some media member, asking Nate Oates, the Alabama head basketball coach, about this, he's like, "Man, my hands are tied. We're just gonna follow the court ruling." Yeah, bro,
Shut up.
what?
Shut up.
What, dude?
Shut up.
That is the most insane thing. Oh, you're just gonna follow the court ruling? Like, your hands are tied. Oh, we gotta play him, man. Like, what are we gonna do? The circuit court judge who just gave us $100,000 last year just told us that we gotta play the guy. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, our hands are tied. Like, dude, get out of here, bro. Like, you were obviously a key component in all of this taking place. You just coached the guy 3 years ago, and you were obviously like, you didn't have to play. You could have played him 0 minutes. You could have told him, "Hey, no,
Yep.
sorry, dude." You could have just not told him he can be on the team. Like, obviously, that's just the most ridiculous thing ever. What a huge hypocrite. What an absolute joker, man. Like,
Yes.
it just amazes me, these guys who are adding these, like, you just lost all integrity and respect. Like, what happens when finally someone with actual power in this sport comes up and says, "You can't do that anymore"? Well, now you don't even have your competitive advantage, and you just lost everyone's respect, Blake.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't respect Alabama coaches anyway, but it's like exactly. the hypocrisy of criticizing the previous situation and then sitting here and taking this
Immediately.
clear corruption again from
Clear.
this judge. I
Clear.
mean, come on.
It's
It's an
obvious.
Alabama judge who donates to the university and grants, again, I just can't get over the hilariousness of, oh, it's an immediate restraining order,
Yeah,
Austin.
dude. Yeah,
Immediate restraining order. Which
immediate.
before the like official ruling, right? So it's like essentially it's kind of like what Joey Aguilar was seeking, right? Was like
Yes.
an injunction, right, before the actual official ruling. Well, this Alabama judge grants an
Within the
immediate
week.
restraining order to this guy, to Bediako, right before the Tennessee game. Right
Give me a
before the
break.
Tennessee game.
Give me a break, dude.
Mind
Like it's
give
did
me an
they
actual
even
break.
have the ruling? Did they even go to court? What did they even get on a Zoom call? Or was this all just paperwork? Did he have his secretary just fill out the, because that's my question. Like, did it even exist? Like, because they're like, oh,
Well, Austin,
we ruled on it.
he couldn't have gone to court if he's playing in the G League, brother. He just came from a G League game.
That's
So of course he wasn't
exactly,
gonna
dude. He just got off the plane for the G League game, which maybe they don't even take planes to those games. He probably rode a bus over to Alabama. Who knows, dude? But at the end of the day, I mean, when did you even have time to have the ruling? Like, all these things
Yeah,
take
exactly.
That's the funny thing. You bring up Joey. Remember, all of that happened during the offseason, and it's taking months and months to do. This guy, well, shoot, I mean, just got on a Zoom call or even a phone call or maybe a text message, or maybe none of it ever happened in the first place. Maybe Nate Oates just called the court office for a favor. I mean, that's what it sounds. It sounds like Nate Oates called the court office. Hey man, like we got this guy.
Yeah.
Just tell the NCAA they can't do anything about it. Like, just grant him some more eligibility if you don't mind.
Just slide it in there. No big deal. You know, it's fine. I can't, man. The craziness that is college sports right now is just, it's unbelievable. We need, and look, we just got on talking about Danny White, you know, saying, you know, hey, you know, we got to follow these imaginary rules. And it's like, you know, the silliness that is, you know, falling behind in competitive edge when there are no rules. But as we mentioned in that video, Austin, we still believe there should be rules because this is just insanity right now. Like, there should be rules. But tampering shouldn't be allowed. There should be penalties for tampering. Grown men who have left college,
yes,
shouldn't be spurned by the professional league and then get to come back to college. But it's time to start your car salesman career.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's dude.
Time. Insurance, whatever you prefer to sell.
Yeah, it's time to make the Indeed profile, update your resume, get on LinkedIn. Like, it's time, bro. Like, the basketball is not working out. It's not working out. And dude, here's the difference between the imaginary rule thing. The NCAA told the guy no. They specifically said no. You cannot have eligibility. You just left a couple years ago. You've been playing professionally for 3 years. No. But they did the opposite because they got a circuit court judge to sign off on it. And they couldn't do anything about the circuit court judge in Alabama, Blake. In nowhere, Alabama. Like, come on, bro. Like, you can't do anything. That's the thing. The UConn athletic director, Blake, came out and, because like all the college coaches are talking about this, all the guys that have been breaking their backs to high school recruit for years are like, why not just go get an NBA roster? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are we even doing here? So the UConn AD came out and said, okay, this is essentially what he said. He's like, okay, we get it. The NCAA cannot enforce its own rules as far as eligibility. Okay, fair, whatever. But what they can do is determine what wins count towards the NCAA tournament and the seeding. Yeah. And that was interesting to me because I immediately thought, well, he's correct. The NCAA is actually over college basketball's playoffs. They actually run that. They run the NCAA tournament. And I think that's a great solution, by the way. That's a great short-term solution to punish teams like Baylor. Well, actually, the Baylor situation, again, remember, the NCAA wrote off on that. Like, they actually signed off on that. They granted him the eligibility. So that's a bad example. But specifically Alabama, tell a team like Alabama, say, hey, you can't do that. So we're not allowing you into the NCAA tournament. Now, the funny thing is that they lost with They lost with the guy last
Exactly.
night. So that's the hilarious part of that. That's what makes the story funny. But I think that's a great short term solution. Punish Alabama for saying, hey, dude, you can't just break our eligibility rules. Like, you can't just do that and think that you're going to get away with it. But the last thing that I want to talk about the situation, Blake, is the comparison to another sport, football, right? Now, football,
Yes.
we've had these eligibility discussions with like Joey, Diego Pavia. Will JUCO count towards eligibility? Well, we've already shown in college basketball that guys who don't work out in the NBA, but go to the NBA, get drafted there, or play in their minor league can come back to college basketball. But again, the UConn directors or athletic directors saying, hey, we can punish them with postseason. But the thing is, that's not how it works in college football, Blake. It's not, because the college football playoff is a completely different entity than the
Right.
than the NCAA. Completely separate. So the NCAA has absolutely no say who plays in, or how the playoff format works, or who's there, or how the seeding it. They have no say in any of it. So what happens when some of these eligibility questions come in to football? And what is stopping a college football team going out and getting a guy who left early, right? Let's say he left early, he left as a junior or a redshirt junior, and he saw his eligibility, but he never played in an actual NFL regular season game. Let's say he just played in the preseason and he got cut. He never made it off the practice squad. What's stopping the college football team saying, hey, let's go get that guy? He never actually played in an NFL regular season game. He was never actually on a final 53 roster. That sounds a lot like the G League situation to me. And the problem with that is, Blake, first of all, the NCAA has shown they can't do anything about it. They can't put sanctions on the team. They can't punish the player. And on top of that, they also can't punish with postseason because they have no say in college football postseason.
In college football. Yeah. It's not a good precedent to set at all across college sports. So, yeah, let's hope it doesn't leak over into college football, man, because we're already struggling with between NIL and the craziness that is the transfer portal and the wild, wild west that is just everything college football right now. Adding that in as well. And like you said, what's to stop the slippery slope from continuing? And it's like, okay, well, practice squad, what's the difference between the practice squad and someone who actually played on an NFL roster and now is benched and wants to come back to college football, maybe for more money, right? It's just it's not a good situation to be in, folks. No. We have got, something's got to change to save college sports, because this ain't it, brother. This ain't it.
Yeah, no. I mean, at some point we have to say, okay, the players can have, and see, this is what I think Sven was talking about this last time he was in the chat about the CBA and the players' rights agreements. Like, if all of these things were agreed upon amongst the teams, the league, essentially, which, like the NFL, the teams in college football and the players, then the players would have no way to sue. They wouldn't have any stance to say, oh, I'm going to sue for more eligibility, because the rules would be very specific and very these are the rules. You can't break these rules. And if you do break these rules, there's violations for the rules. Right now, that's the part that's missing. Here's the rules, and it's just like the NCAA sliding you a piece of paper and say, please don't break our rules. And then you're like, okay, so what happens if I don't? And they say nothing, and then you can just crumple up that piece of paper and throw it in the garbage. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing whatsoever. So that's the real issue with it. And I don't know. I mean, they're literally on their knees in a public statement begging Congress to step in. I mean, if that's the state of it, I'm just sitting here saying it's like probably nothing's down the pipeline getting fixed anytime soon.
Don't look good, brother. It don't look good for sure. Shout out to some chatters here. Rhonda says that it makes absolutely no sense. Doesn't look good for the coaches involved. And then, she says it's going to ruin basketball, but also baseball. It could be baseball too. Again, we talk about football, but it could flow over into baseball as well, coming back from the MLB. And
Yeah.
then Big Orange 5021 makes a point about, hey, if once you go kind of into the federal courts, and at some point in federal court, maybe the argument could be made that, hey, these college sports teams are crossing state lines and are engaged in interstate commerce, right? So maybe some sort of ruling can be used there. Something, man. I don't know. Something's got to happen. Well, we got to save college sports,
I'm
brother, because
starting
it
to
ain't
miss
looking
the
good.
days of the NCAA just giving teams the death penalty, man. Like, and the crazy thing is, Blake, it feels like the last team to get in trouble with all these things was Tennessee and the McDonald's
Yeah,
bags. Like, we were like the
yeah.
last dang team that the NCAA apparently had any power over. Weird, man. It's unfortunate the way things are going at the moment.
Pretty interesting. And again, pretty interesting that this judge made this immediate ruling before the Tennessee game. But Austin, segueing into the good news, despite the craziness of essentially a minor league NBA player playing for the Crimson Tide, we were still able to go down to Tuscaloosa and get a W, which was absolutely massive. Like you mentioned, could have been even better if we'd been able to hold on against Kentucky. But regardless, it's always a good day when we beat the Crimson Tide. So we
Yep.
beat Alabama 79-73 in Tuscaloosa, Austin. Great win on the road. Nate Ament, Ament, I think is what it is. I'm gonna remember it as Ament. He is honestly, Austin. He's finally starting to look like
He's hit his
he
stride.
was supposed to look,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so great news from him, 29 points from Ament. And then we've got, of course, Gillespie continues to be a huge factor as well. 24 points for Jacoby Gillespie. And then, of course, the players down in the post had
Mhm.
a decent game between Estrella and
Well,
Akpara.
and
And just overall a good team win.
yeah, and shout out to the guys in the post. You had to guard a G League player, a veteran in the G League, three-year veteran in the G League, Bediako. Which, and again, the result of the game makes the Bediako situation so funny, man. Like you're risking your team's ability to participate in the NCAA tournament to have a slight competitive advantage, and it immediately blows up in your face, and you lose at home to a basketball team in us who's not been very good this year. Like, we've
No,
not been
no.
very good. This is probably our best win, one of our best wins. We're typically not very good on the road at all, so it's just immediate karma. It's hilarious. I will say Bediako absolutely made an impact, though. I mean, he went 5 of 6 from the field, Blake, 13 points. Like, he made an impact, dude. Shocking, right? It's a 23-year-old grown man professional basketball player is going to be a grown man amongst boys in college basketball. Like, duh. Anyone could have told you that. His career average was like 5 or 6 points a game, Blake. He doubled it last night, his first game back. Again, none of this is shocking to anyone.
Yeah.
But from the good guys' perspective, the good guys won, as Rhonda said in the chat. You're right, man. Ament has absolutely hit his stride. It really has started a couple games ago, Blake. He was good against Kentucky. He finally started getting more aggressive, and has been just kind of that offensive weapon that we've needed him to be the last few games. It's just, again, it's one of those things like, and maybe, who knows, maybe as a team, like that Kentucky game could have broke us, right? That Kentucky game could have broke us. This Bediako situation could have gotten our heads, but it didn't. We got a huge win, and maybe this is the momentum we need. We're actually in kind of an easier part of our schedule at the moment, Blake. So we could go on a little streak here, in which we need it, by the way. This is the first time that we haven't been ranked in the top 25 in literally years, dude. I think it's since like 2021 or something.
Yep.
In the same amount of time that we've been in the top 25, and this is the first week we're not. I think we'll get right back in there, though, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, we looked good. The refs try to take it from us at the end. I wasn't listening to the broadcast. I was watching the broadcast. I didn't have the volume on because for any UFC fans, UFC on Paramount debut card, I was watching that on the big screen last night, but I had the Vols on the second screen. Apparently, my buddy was telling me that the broadcast was supporting the Bediako's decision, like heavily. Like all game, they were just putting into the narrative that it's like, oh yeah, it's totally fine. Of course you should have the opportunity to come back. It's just like, really, really, ESPN. Like, I get it's in Alabama, right? Like, it's in Alabama, so they're probably thinking, well, Alabama fans will be watching the broadcast or whatever. It's like, dude, you are like, I mean, you show blatant bias when you say that, Blake, because it's like a 95 to 5% issue. Like,
Yep.
95% of people agree that he shouldn't have been granted eligibility because the NCAA said no, and because that's a ridiculous thing in the first place. But you got the one guy in your company that will support Alabama, and it's the most ESPN crap ever, man. It was just, I mean, that would have been nauseating. Thank goodness I didn't have the volume up on the broadcast. Would have been absolutely nauseating to hear that idiot say that, oh yeah, for sure, a G League veteran at this point. Basically, I mean, dude, he's been there for 3 seasons, man. Like,
Yeah,
give me a
exactly.
break, dude. Like, that is just ridiculous. And the refs try to take it from us at the end. Shocker, right? Like, it's in Alabama. We've seen this time and time again amongst all kinds of sports. The good guys won. The right outcome happened, and thank goodness, because I mean, it's such a dirtbag school, man. And a dirtbag. I have absolutely no respect for Nate Oates at this point, man. That guy literally has lost all integrity after the hypocrisy he showed and the decision that he
Right.
made with Charles Bediako.
Exactly. All credibility lost in that little display of hypocrisy there. And Rhonda makes a great point in the chat about, hey, you've got actual student athletes. Because let's be honest, Betty, I assume, Austin, that this guy still had to enroll in classes when he came back. Now,
and he didn't have his
it's kind
degree.
of strange. It's kind of strange because exactly, he didn't have his degree, and it's kind of
Middle of the
strange because
semester.
we're already almost into February.
Yeah.
So how he got into classes is beyond me. But I'm gonna give Alabama the benefit of the doubt and say that they shoehorned him into some classes somehow.
Mhm.
But let's be honest, the dude is not there to be a student. Let's be honest. He's been playing in the NBA G League for 3 years, so he's not been there. He's not there to be a student. And so Rhonda makes a great point that he's taking a minutes away from actual student athletes. And it's like, dang, your coach is bringing in this guy who's had his chance. He's had his shot. I haven't had my shot yet to try to make the NBA, and now you're giving my minutes to him. But as you said, Austin, the good guys won regardless. Again, huge game from Nate Ament, and Gillespie had a great game. And then again, shout out to our big man who had to guard an NBA G League.
Yeah, and Blake, nothing was stopping him from going to college the last 3 years, by the way. There's no rule saying that you can't be enrolled in college classes while you're in the NBA G League.
If he wanted his degree. If he, it's, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're coming back for your degree. I'm sure.
For sure.
I'm sure.
You coming back to your, even though, again, nothing was stopping you from getting your degree, and you weren't good enough in the G League to make it to the NBA. So, like, you probably had a lot of time on your hands. Like, you probably had time to enroll in some night classes, and get that degree that you're so coveting, right? Because that was that was a big part of this lawsuit, Blake. I mean, he was saying, well, poor me, I didn't know I was going to have NIL opportunities, and I didn't know, and I want my degree. No, what happened is that you thought you were good enough to play in the NBA, and you weren't. That's what happened. That's the story. You weren't good enough to play in the NBA. You found that out the hard way, and you regretted your decision. Of course, the great Rick Barnes, he's a man of high integrity, and he was asked about the situation, and we're more fired up than Rick Barnes even was, which is crazy because he actually had to deal with it. He was the first person and first coach who had to coach against this guy on the college level again. And Rick basically said, of course, he said it in a great way, but he said that it's like, hey, I've had a lot of guys play for me that regretted their decision to leave early. Like, they regretted that decision. But he basically said, which this is obviously what the rule should be. This is obvious that once you make the decision to go to the NBA, that decision is final. That decision is finalized. If you make that jump, because Blake, he signed a 2-way contract to the San Antonio Spurs and their G League team Once you sign that contract, it's done. Your eligibility is forfeited. And that's obvious, right? Any person with a half a brain cell would come to the same conclusion.
Exactly. I mean, it's just it's so obvious, but regardless, again, we were able to win despite, like you said, he doubled his average, his career average previously from college.
What a joke.
All this craziness, the controversy, and Rhonda made a good point in the chat earlier as well that hey, maybe it fired the team up. You know,
Yeah,
they want to come in
probably.
here and beat this NBA players. So love to see it. Love to see the men's basketball back in the win column. Love to see Nate Ammett finding his stride. We're hoping it continues, brother, because we do
Yeah.
not want to miss the NCAA championship. We want to be back in the top 25. And so hoping that this stride continues for the men's basketball team.
And
And then we also want to go ahead, Austin.
yeah, and yeah, just real quick to touch on what you just said, we needed it for the tournament. We needed this. Like if you kept on this
Yes. Yeah.
slide, like it was getting in dangerous territory of not even making the NCAA tournament, which would have been tragic. Like, I mean, we're not covering
Yeah.
an NIT team here. We don't want to talk about going to the NIT because I'd be ticked about it. So it's good. This win is huge, man, and I think we can go on a little bit of a roll here.
Yes, definitely hoping that we can go on a roll, continue this momentum, especially as we head into, like you mentioned, kind of an easier part of the schedule for a little bit. So definitely need to continue that momentum. We'll keep a pulse on the men's basketball. Austin, we're about to give a shout out to the Lady Vols basketball as well. But I just want to give a quick shout out to chatter, good old Rocky Top. Good to see you, good old Rocky Top. He's in the chat here talking about the winter storm and saying, hey, ask everyone to pray for those who are affected by the winter storm. It's catastrophic for some, even if it's just bad for some other people. Vols fans are not. So absolutely a good old Rex up. We kind of started the top of the show saying, hey, look, hope everyone's staying warm, staying safe. We mentioned it sounds like in Middle Tennessee as well, up on the plateau, up in Scott County, according to Eric, and then of course in East Tennessee, it seems like it's mostly just rain at this point. The roads don't seem quite as bad as we thought they were going to be. Of course, it's still cold. And then, of course, there are some folks, especially kind of north of us up into Kentucky and beyond. Look, we think Kentuckians should stay in the coal mines and we want to beat them in basketball and football. But obviously, like good old Rocky Top said, Vol fan or not, we hope everyone's staying safe. And please, if you're a praying type, pray for those who are affected, especially if folks are in a dangerous situation. So stay safe, folks. Stay safe. But Austin, a safe bet right now is the Lady Vols winning in the SEC, man.
Yeah.
They are
Yes.
on a streak. So on the topic of beating Alabama in Alabama, as it should be, the Lady Vols went down and got a big win, 70-59 against Alabama on the road, and then also continued their streak just a few days ago against Kentucky, winning against Kentucky 60-58. So shout out to Kim Caldwell, Austin, and the Lady Vols. They're looking like they're also going to be on a little streak here.
Yeah, man. Honestly, we might have been a little bit too harsh on them early in the year. They've kind of hit their stride, especially in conference play. Like you said, undefeated now in conference play, and two huge wins. These are two ranked wins. Kentucky was 11th when we beat Kentucky, Blake, and then like you said, that road win against Alabama. The schedule stays pretty tough for the women's. The SEC is really tough conference in women's basketball. But yeah, I mean, Kim Caldwell hasn't played really well. And yeah, I mean, listen, like I would love to see, we're fans of all Vol sports, and I would love to see the Lady Vols back to where they were, obviously in the past Summit days. But yeah, I mean, Caldwell continues to look like a great hire, man. There was a funny video I saw of one of her players, like, which I love her coaching style, by the way. Like the kind of like, hey, we don't celebrate like expected accomplishments. Like we're not celebrating like regular
Yeah.
season wins. I love that. But there's a funny clip of one of her players, like, and I don't know what the player was. I'm sorry about that, but she was like, the player was like running over to her, like, and trying to jump on her and hug her, and Caldwell just kind of like put her arms out, like, whoa, settle down, kind of thing. That was pretty funny. But yeah, dude, she's got them cooking so far in conference play.
Hey, no one will ever hold a candle to the great Pat Summit. Rest in peace, Pat Summit. But man, it kind of reminds you a little bit about, or a little bit of Pat's fire, and that Pat Summit stare. and not wanting you to remember that you're here for business and here to
Yeah.
win.
Yeah,
And
we
so
celebrate championships here,
it's
random regular
exactly.
season wins.
Yeah, when you're talking about 8-time national championship winning Pat Summit, the standard is high for the Lady Vols.
Yep.
We're not celebrating the little stuff for sure. So, and then good old Rocky Top says in the chat here, do you think Caldwell could get us even close to the Summit days? Look, man, Pat Summit is the greatest of all time. So
Yeah.
it some pretty drastic things would have to happen for Kim Caldwell to get there, Austin. But it's looking good so far in terms of her trying to get us back to that elite status.
Yeah, no, and like kind of like Blake said, no, I don't think anyone's gonna ever touch what Pat Summit did, because even if Kim Caldwell just beat the odds, right, and just like won 8 championships, which will never happen again, by the way, no coach will ever win 8 championships again. It doesn't matter because she didn't do it first. Like Pat Summit
Exactly. Yeah.
paved the way. She built a
Yes.
program from nothing. That's the difference. So no one can hold a candle to her. But close to those days is an interesting point. I think. I think we're already seeing it a little bit. I mean, it depends on the tournament. Obviously, the tournament success means more than anything. Regular season
Yeah.
success is one thing, and again, we struggled in out of conference play. But again, maybe that was just us not hitting our stride yet. We have the annual game against UConn coming up. Obviously, that will be a huge test, and we'll kind of get a better idea of where we stand amongst the elite teams in college or women's basketball. But yeah, we'll see. As long as we're competitive every year and like in that conversation, in the Elite Eight-ish conversation, competing for championships, maybe not winning it dang near every year like Pat, but at least in that conversation, then I think we'll all be happy with that.
Yeah, it's exactly like we talk about in football, right? We have a tradition and history of winning, so we're not expecting national championships every year, especially in today's age of college sports and NIL. But we want to be in the conversation every year. We want to be competing every year for championships. So we hope Kim will continue improving the women's basketball program, getting us there. One way she can do it, brother, is speaking of UConn. We beat UConn last year. That was kind of that moment where we're like, okay, Caldwell might be the real deal.
Yep.
If she can continue that, we'd love to see that, and that is the first step in getting us back to the prominence that is Lady Vols basketball. So love to see Austin from the Lady Vols beating Alabama on the road, winning against Kentucky 60-58. Good stuff from them. Good stuff from the men's basketball program beating Alabama on the road as well. So all around, it is a good day on Rocky Top, brother. When we got W's against Bama. So, folks, it has been a fun show, Austin. We have kind of covered a little bit of everything here. Man, I mean, a lot of good stuff happening on the football side of things. Hiring a national championship winning coach. We covered that, folks. So if you're just joining us, go back, check that out. And then, of course, talking about the portal additions at the very top of the show and where that stands. And then, of course, talking about the crazy situation with Alabama judge and then, of course, the basketball programs. But, folks, if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe if you haven't already, if you're new around here. And then, of course, like the video. We'd really appreciate that. And then, of course, jump in the chat / comments and let us know what you think as well. Austin, any other final words, brother?
No, that's pretty much it. Appreciate everybody watching. It's more of a hardcore show today with basketball talking there. Not a ton of football news. But yeah, it was a fun show, man. It's like the shortest show that we've had in what feels like 8 months. I mean, at this point, maybe our preview shows, but pretty nice and tight show today. Only about an hour long.
Yeah, exactly. That is kind of typically what we aim for is about an hour. But man, if we got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about, then we gotta talk about that. Shout out to Sven in the chat. Sven is a Mississippi State fan, but he likes to hang out with us. We appreciate you jumping in the chat here, Sven. But listen, brother, I gotta disagree with you. I'm sorry. I know REM is a great coach.
We riding Pat all the way.
We ride with Pat Summit, baby, all day and twice on Sunday, baby. Okay, it is Pat Summit or nothing. Okay. And again, she also paved the way. And so look, and there may have been Pat Summitt was pretty convinced that Genio Ariema was cheating. So I tend to trust and believe the great Pat Summitt. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. We're riding with Pat Summitt, baby. Shout out to Lynn in the chat. Good to see you, Lynn. And Lynn makes a great point going back to the situation with Bediako. He says that, hey, if an NBA player can come back to college, why not Joey? Joey
What's stopping Joey? Just, hey, like you said before the show, man, let's just get Anderson County, Knox County Circuit Court judge come in here and say yes, whether he donates to the program or not.
Hey, immediate restraining order right now. Get him on the field. Get him on the field. Would love to see it. Shout out to Daniel Hightower as well. He says, go Big Orange. Appreciate everyone jumping in the chat. Again, it's been a fun show. Hit that like button. And, of course, leave us a comment as well after the fact if you're rewatching the episode later. We really appreciate you guys. We're going to keep a pulse on everything in terms of volunteer sports across the board. We're going to keep a pulse on off-season football news. So stick around for that. And then, of course, we're going to continue to cover the basketball Vols as well. And then soon enough, Austin, baseball season is right around the corner as well. So
can't wait.
Folks, we will see you guys next week for our live show, Sunday around 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But until then, as always, baby, go freaking Vols.
GBO.